I'm going to jump straight into the first one, and that is Said El Mala, the Cologne winger. He currently has a market value of 35 million euros. 19-year-old left winger, really kind of came out of nowhere for FC Köln this year. The average suggestion from users is that his market value should go up to 43.6 million euros. We obviously don't tend to work in decimals when it gets to that stage, but that's obviously the average from all the user votes. And it was a really interesting discussion in the forum where people were basically debating how much FC Köln could get for him. One user says they're holding out for 50 million euros. Another user suggests Brighton, who have been heavily linked with him and obviously have a history of swooping in and picking up exciting young talents in the Bundesliga, are only prepared to pay 35 million euros with a standard 15% sell-on clause, which apparently is the classic move from Brighton. But let's jump into it. What do we think? Do you agree with one user that he should be 50 million euros, or do you think he's perfectly fine at 35 million euros?
I mean, he's an interesting case, isn't he? Because his entire season with Köln has been about. I mean, the entire season of Köln has been about him and how to use him right, and the discussions about him. Yeah, I have not seen a player discussed this much at 1. FC Köln since Lukas Podolski, former Bayern and Arsenal striker as well, right? Having that much discourse, and he's an exciting young star whose statistics, 11 goals and 5 assists in 31 Bundesliga games, quite outstanding, especially for a team that's been fighting relegation all season long. And considering that he's a teenager, and I think where I'm a little bit concerned maybe about his evaluation, early in the season when he first burst onto the scene, there was talk about 100 million euros, 70 million euros, those kind of numbers. The problem I have with his evaluation, and why I'm a bit worried that it might be too high, or might go too high, is because Köln don't have a strong history of selling players for big fees. And there's also a real danger that players at a young age, they have this feeling or urgency that they need to make another move to go to another club, to a new environment that isn't necessarily made or built for them. Premier League teams are notorious for spending lots of money on lots of players and have the financial ability to fix costly mistakes quickly by making more purchases. Or even if they don't necessarily make a mistake, but signing a player that doesn't 100% fit them, just discard them. Brian Gruda comes to mind, who went from Mainz to Leipzig a little bit too early, to Brighton a little bit too early in my mind, and then has come back to Germany since, and in a different environment is doing quite well in Leipzig, right? Because he's back in Germany, he's playing for a coach who believes in him and has a plan for him. Leipzig had clearly had a plan to play him. And that is where the evaluation, especially when Premier League teams are involved, can jump up too high. And that is my worries. And I actually feel quite comfortable where he's at, considering that he's only had one Bundesliga season under his belt. Like, I mean, in an ideal world, he'd play there for another year and confirm that evaluation, maybe make the World Cup squad. That can change a lot of things as well. But I think 35 million, maybe 40 million is probably pretty fair, Stefan.
Yeah, you basically took the words right out of my mouth. I have Brian Gruda's profile open in front of me because I was just double checking what he did leave Mainz for. And you're right, it's 31.5 million euros. And yeah, I think they're very, very similar cases. And especially in the sense that, as you said, I don't think Said El Mala is by any means a finished article. I think he's obviously like a rookie, if you want to use the kind of American expression, or, he's still learning his trade for sure. He's not even really an undistinguishable or undisputed starter for FC Köln. He's not an undisputed performer for them yet. So I'd be very surprised, even if Brighton are prepared to make an offer for him, pick him up, and to even kind of look beyond the fact that things didn't quite work out for Gruda. I think they'd be well aware of the fact that this guy's not anywhere near ready for the Premier League, because arguably he's not even quite ready for the Bundesliga yet. So I don't foresee Brighton going out and spending 32, 35 million euros on him, unless they're really prepared to go long term and say, right, we'll send him back to FC Köln for a couple of years and see how he gets on. Which admittedly is maybe what they have done with Gruda, to an extent. But I think 50 million euros is very, very optimistic, shall I say. You never know with these things. Worse players have gone for more money, and if it turns into a kind of bidding more this summer, then he certainly could go for more. But I think I tend to agree. I think about 35 million euros tends to make a lot of sense for El Mala right now.